There's something hauntingly beautiful about the way time leaves its mark on the world, how the grandest structures of human civilization can slowly surrender to silence, yet still speak volumes if you know how to listen. Picture this: you're standing in the heart of an ancient temple, its towering columns worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain. The air is thick with the weight of history, and if you close your eyes, you might just catch the faintest whisper of a story waiting to be told. These abandoned places aren't just ruins, they're time capsules holding secrets that have outlasted empires, wars, and the rise and fall of entire cultures. Today, we're stepping into the shadows of these forgotten spaces, where every crumbling wall and weathered inscription has a tale to share. From the moss-covered halls of lost monasteries to the sun-baked courtyards of temples swallowed by jungles, these structures are more than just stone and mortar. They're witnesses to the dreams, fears, and triumphs of the people who built them. Some say the walls themselves remember that if you press your hand against the cold stone, you might feel the echo of a chant, the murmur of a prayer, or even the faintest brush of something unseen. Explorers and historians have reported strange phenomena in these places, voices where there should be silence, shadows that move without a source, and an overwhelming sense of being watched by something beyond our understanding. Are these mere tricks of the mind, or could there be something deeper at work? This journey isn't just about uncovering the past, it's about connecting with the echoes of those who came before us. As we peel back the layers of time, we'll examine the architectural genius that allowed these structures to endure, the legends that keep their stories alive, and the chilling accounts of those who have dared to walk their empty corridors. By the end, you'll see these ancient halls not as lifeless ruins, but as living testaments to the ingenuity and spirit of humanity. So take a deep breath, because we're about to step into the whispering walls of abandoned temples and ancient halls, where history doesn't just sleep, it listens. There's a reason abandoned sacred spaces hold such a powerful grip on our imagination. Maybe it's the way sunlight filters through broken arches, casting patterns that haven't been seen in centuries. Or the way the wind carries whispers through empty corridors, as if the walls themselves are trying to tell their stories. These places weren't just buildings, they were the heartbeat of civilizations, where people gathered to pray, celebrate, and seek meaning. Now, left to the elements, they become something even more profound, a bridge between us and the distant past. Think of the great temple complexes swallowed by jungles, like Cambodia's Angkor Wat, where roots twist through stone like the fingers of time itself. Or the crumbling monasteries perched on cliffs in Tibet, where prayer flags still flutter long after the monks have gone. These sites weren't abandoned because they lost their purpose. They were outlasted by the very societies that built them. And that's what makes them so haunting. They're monuments to impermanence, reminding us that even the grandest achievements of humanity are temporary. Yet in their decay, there's a strange kind of beauty, the way moss softens sharp edges, or how faded murals still hint at their former brilliance, tells a story of resilience. But it's not just about the architecture or the history, it's the emotional pull these places have. Standing in the shadow of a towering ruin, you can't help but wonder about the hands that carved these stones, the voices that once filled these halls. Were they hopeful, afraid, proud? The silence doesn't feel empty, it feels heavy with memory. Some travelers report an almost electric sense of presence, as if the past hasn't entirely faded. Whether it's the acoustics of an ancient amphitheater carrying sound in uncanny ways, or the way shadows seem to linger just a second too long, these spaces play tricks on the mind, or maybe they're not tricks at all. Perhaps what draws us to these forgotten places is the chance to touch something timeless. In a world that moves faster every day, they force us to slow down, to listen. They ask us to consider what endures not just in stone but in spirit, because even as nature reclaims them, even as their walls crumble, the stories they hold refuse to fade. And that's the true magic of these whispering ruins. They make the past feel alive. How did ancient builders achieve such impossible precision without modern tools? The stones of Machu Picchu fit together so perfectly that not even a razor blade can slide between them. No mortar, no gaps, just seamless craftsmanship that has withstood earthquakes for centuries. Or consider the hypogeum of Malta, an underground labyrinth carved from solid rock with chambers that resonate at frequencies capable of altering human consciousness. The builders left no blueprints, no written records, just these silent marvels that defy logic. Some of these techniques seem to border on magic. Take the Great Pyramid of Giza, aligned with near-perfect accuracy to the cardinal points, a feat requiring knowledge of astronomy and mathematics that predates our earliest known civilizations. Then there's Puma Punku in Bolivia, where massive andesite blocks were cut with laser-like precision, their surfaces smooth as glass. How could a culture without metal tools achieve such flawless angles? Skeptics argue it was painstaking labor and trial and error, but that doesn't fully explain the consistency. Others whisper of lost technologies, ancient civilizations possessing knowledge we've yet to rediscover. The truth might be even more fascinating than speculation. Recent experiments show that certain stone-cutting techniques, like using water and abrasives, could have achieved these results with patience and skill. And those celestial alignments, many cultures spent generations observing the stars, passing down knowledge orally. What seems impossible to us might have been routine for them. But that doesn't make it any less awe-inspiring. Imagine the dedication, the lifetime spent perfecting a single craft, the communal effort to raise stones weighing hundreds of tons without cranes or pulleys. Maybe the real mystery isn't how they built these structures, but why. Were they monuments to gods, gateways to other realms, or something else entirely? The precision suggests purpose beyond mere function. Perhaps the builders encoded messages in the angles, the acoustics, the alignments, messages we're still deciphering. Every chisel mark, every precisely placed stone feels like a deliberate act of reverence, a testament to human ambition reaching beyond the limits of its time. So next time you see an ancient temple or hall, don't just admire its beauty, look closer. Trace the seams between the stones, listen to the way sound moves through the space, and ask yourself, what secrets are still hidden in plain sight? Because these structures aren't just relics of the past, they're puzzles waiting for the right minds to unlock them. And who knows, the next great discovery might come from someone just like you, standing in the shadows of these whispering walls, ready to listen. Stories of whispering stones and murmuring walls stretch back further than recorded history, appearing in nearly every civilization that has left ruins behind. In the temples of southern India, visitors speak of hearing faint Sanskrit chants drifting through empty corridors long after the last priest departed. Across the ocean, caretakers of Scottish castles report the clang of phantom swords and distant war cries echoing from walls that once witnessed medieval sieges. These aren't just ghost stories, they're recurring patterns, threads of belief that suggest something deeper might be at work. Consider the science behind these phenomena. Certain stones, like limestone or quartz, have acoustic properties that can amplify and distort sound in eerie ways. Wind passing through narrow gaps in ancient masonry creates harmonic vibrations, mimicking human voices, an effect known as Aeolian resonance. Then there's the theory of stone tape, the idea that intense emotional events might imprint themselves on surrounding materials, replaying like a recording when conditions align. Skeptics point to these explanations, but even they admit, not all accounts fit neatly into scientific boxes. Take the case of a 12th century English abbey, where archaeologists documented an inexplicable phenomenon. Visitors standing in the ruined choir reported hearing Gregorian hymns, though no source could be found. When audio engineers analyzed the site, they discovered the architecture formed a perfect natural sound mirror, but that didn't explain why the music only manifested at dawn, or why the melodies matched lost liturgical compositions from the abbey's heyday. Similar mysteries surround the Mayan pyramids of Belize, where certain staircases emit distinct drum beats when rain falls, recreating ceremonial rhythms last played 800 years ago. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of these legends is how consistently they appear across unconnected cultures. In Japan, abandoned shrines are said to whisper the names of those who neglected them. Romanian shepherds tell of ruined monasteries where the walls recite forgotten prayers in Old Church Slavonic. The common thread, these voices always seem tied to moments of profound significance, worship, battle, celebration, as if the stones absorbed the emotional weight of human experience. What if these whispers aren't just echoes but reminders? A crumbling temple's murmurs might be its final act of defiance against oblivion, ensuring the prayers once held within its walls aren't entirely lost. Or maybe they're invitations urging us to listen closer, not just with our ears but with our imagination, because whether born from physics, folklore, or something beyond our current understanding, these talking stones challenge us to reconsider what we know about time, memory, and the enduring power of place. After all, if walls could talk, perhaps they've been speaking all along. We just stopped knowing how to hear them. There's a thin line between science and the supernatural when it comes to the sounds that haunt these ancient places. Step into the grand chamber of a temple like Greece's Oracle of Delphi, where priests once interpreted the whispers of gods, and you'll notice something uncanny. Even the softest words spoken at one end can be heard clearly at the other. This isn't magic, it's masterful acoustics. The builders shaped every curve and arch to amplify sound, turning stone into a natural microphone. But what happens when the acoustics create effects no one intended? Take the case of Malta's Hypogeum, a 3,000-year-old underground sanctuary where certain chambers hum at exactly 110 Hz, a frequency known to alter brain activity. Studies show this specific vibration can shift perception, inducing meditative or even trance-like states. Was this deliberate? Did ancient priests use these sonic tools to bridge the gap between worlds? Or is it simply a quirk of physics that later cultures interpreted as divine? The answer might be both. Across the world, from Mayan ball courts to Egyptian tombs, architects seem to have harnessed sound in ways that blur the boundaries between ritual and science. Yet not every whisper in these ruins fits neatly into an acoustic equation. Visitors to the abandoned monastery of Montserrat in Spain often report hearing Gregorian chants drifting through empty cloisters, even when no living soul is present. Audio recordings reveal no identifiable source, yet the melodies match centuries-old liturgical music lost to time. Similarly, in the temples of Hampi, India, travelers describe the sound of invisible bells ringing at dusk, though no physical bells remain. These phenomena defy simple explanations. No wind patterns or stone vibrations account for them. Paranormal researchers suggest these sounds might be imprints, emotional echoes left behind by intense moments in history. The theory of residual energy proposes that strong emotions, whether from prayer, celebration, or tragedy, can somehow embed themselves into the very fabric of a place. Skeptics counter that our brains are wired to find patterns, especially in unfamiliar environments. The creak of old wood, the rustle of leaves, even the distant call of an animal can morph into something recognizably human when filtered through the imagination. But here's where it gets truly intriguing. Some of these unexplained sounds are repeatable. In certain Scottish castles, independent groups have recorded identical phantom footsteps pacing the same hallway at the same time of night. In Cambodia's Ta Prohm Temple, multiple visitors unrelated to one another have described hearing children's laughter near a specific crumbling corridor, despite the area being inaccessible due to preservation efforts. Coincidence, mass suggestion, or is there something more persistent at work? The debate between science and the paranormal might miss the bigger picture. Perhaps these whispers, whether born of acoustics or something beyond our current understanding, serve the same purpose they did for ancient cultures, to remind us that the past isn't truly silent. It lingers in the stones, in the air, in the way a space can hold memory long after its builders have turned to dust. So the next time you stand in one of these echoing halls, pay attention not just to what you hear, but to what you feel. Because sometimes the most important messages aren't carried by sound at all, but by the chill down your spine or the sudden certainty that you're not quite alone. Lost languages etched into temple walls may be the ultimate locked doors of history, each symbol a stubborn sentinel guarding secrets we can't yet grasp. The Voynich manuscript, with its bizarre botanical illustrations and unreadable script, has defied linguists for centuries, its pages flickering between genius and gibberish depending on who's looking. Then there's Easter Island's Rongo-Rongo tablets, carved with glyphs that resemble birdmen and celestial patterns, their meaning as elusive as the islanders who created them. What's fascinating isn't just that we can't read these texts, it's that someone, somewhere, once could. These weren't random scratches, they were someone's sacred hymns, royal decrees, or warnings to future generations. Consider the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, where astronomers etched star charts so precise they track celestial events thousands of years into the future. Nearby, hieroglyphs depict what some claim are light bulbs and ancient electrical devices interpretations that spark debates between mainstream archaeologists and alternative historians. Or take the Indus Valley script, a 4,000-year-old language found on seals and pottery across modern-day Pakistan and India. Despite over 100 attempts at decipherment, its symbols remain as cryptic as the day they were discovered. The frustration is palpable. These aren't just puzzles, they're conversations frozen mid-sentence, leaving us straining to hear the rest. Why does this matter? Because language isn't just about words, it's about worldview. The Maya saw time as cyclical, their calendars tracking vast cosmic cycles we're only beginning to comprehend. Norse runes weren't just letters, they were believed to carry magic capable of shaping fate. When we lose a script, we lose more than vocabulary. We lose the lens through which an entire culture saw existence. That's what makes temple inscriptions so tantalizing. They're not just historical records, they're philosophical manifestos waiting to be read. Recent breakthroughs offer glimmers of hope. AI has begun identifying patterns in undeciphered scripts, mapping grammatical structures invisible to the human eye. In 2022, researchers used neural networks to partially decode Linear A, a Minoan language untouched since 1500 B. CE, meanwhile, crowdsourced projects invite amateur linguists worldwide to collaborate on cracking these ancient codes. Every translation, no matter how small, is like lighting a candle in a vast dark library, one that may hold answers to questions we haven't even thought to ask. So the next time you see photographs of temple carvings or weathered stone tablets, don't just admire their artistry. wonder about the hands that carved them, the voices that once spoke those words aloud. Because somewhere in those twisting symbols and half-faded glyphs could be revelations about medicine, astronomy, or even the nature of consciousness itself. The stones have kept their secrets this long, but they won't hold them forever. Hidden chambers aren't just architectural quirks, they're deliberate puzzles left behind by civilizations that clearly had something to hide. Take the Great Pyramid of Giza, where scans in 2017 revealed a mysterious void above the Grand Gallery, a space large enough to hold a small airplane. No one's been inside it yet, but the discovery raises tantalizing questions. Was it a structural safeguard, a hidden tomb, or something more enigmatic? Then there's Cambodia's Angkor Wat, where laser scans uncovered an entire network of undiscovered chambers beneath the temple's iconic towers. These weren't storage rooms. Their intricate carvings and alignment with celestial events suggest they served a purpose we're only beginning to guess at. What's striking is how consistently these secret spaces defy expectations. In Egypt's Valley of the Kings, radar detected a hidden corridor behind Tutankhamun's burial chamber, a passage that might lead to the long-lost tomb of Queen Nefertiti. Over in Turkey, the Derinkuyu underground city stretches 18 levels deep, with rolling stone doors and ventilation shafts proving these weren't last-minute additions but meticulously planned sanctuaries. The precision is unnerving. These builders didn't just stash things away, they engineered layers of secrecy, as if anticipating future explorers. Modern technology peels back those layers inch by inch. Ground-penetrating radar, LiDAR, and even cosmic ray detectors are reshaping archaeology, turning what was once guesswork into a high-stakes treasure hunt. When researchers scanned Peru's Chavín de Huanta, they found tunnels that hum at specific frequencies, amplifying ritual chants into eerie, otherworldly echoes. In Italy, thermal imaging exposed a hidden chamber beneath the Palazzo Vecchio, one that might contain a lost mural by Leonardo da Vinci, concealed for 500 years. Each discovery feels like rewriting history in real time, yet for every answered question, these chambers pose 10 more. Why did the builders of Malta's Hypogeum seal off an entire chamber with thousands of human bones? What prompted the Maya to bury their sacred cenotes with golden artifacts, then deliberately obscure the entrances? The most compelling theory isn't about hiding wealth, it's about protecting knowledge. Ancient cultures might have safeguarded advanced astronomical charts, medicinal recipes, or spiritual texts they deemed too powerful to leave unguarded. The real thrill lies in what's still out there. Less than half of Egypt's known pyramids have been fully mapped. Only 30% of Angkor's sprawling metropolis has been excavated. With every scan, every flicker of radar, we're not just finding rooms, we're finding invitations. These hidden spaces whisper the same challenge across millennia: keep looking. Because the next great discovery isn't just behind a door. It's behind a door no one even knew existed. The idea that ancient ruins are guarded by more than just crumbling stone isn't new. It's a thread woven through the fabric of nearly every culture that's left behind monumental architecture. From the jungles of Cambodia to the deserts of Egypt, locals whisper of spirits, curses, and unseen protectors standing vigil over these sacred spaces. Take the infamous Curse of the Pharaohs, which surged into public consciousness after the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. When several members of the excavation team died under unusual circumstances, the world latched onto the idea of supernatural retribution. But look closer, and you'll find these warnings aren't limited to Egypt. In Peru, villagers near the Nazca line speak of a winged guardian that punishes those who disrespect the ancient geoglyphs. In India, temple caretakers warn of serpentine spirits coiled around forgotten shrines, striking down thieves with fever or madness. What's fascinating isn't just the consistency of these stories, it's how often they're rooted in tangible details. Many so-called curses include eerily specific instructions. Don't remove artifacts, don't enter after sundown, don't disturb certain carvings. The builders of these sites seem to anticipate future intruders, embedding psychological deterrence into their designs. Consider the tomb of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, said to be booby-trapped with rivers of mercury and crossbows rigged to fire at grave robbers. Modern tests confirm the soil around the mound contains mercury levels far higher than normal, suggesting the legend might have a basis in fact. Even the layout of some ruins plays tricks on the mind. Labyrinthine corridors, sudden dead ends, and acoustics that amplify footsteps can make intruders feel watched, or worse, pursued. But perhaps the most compelling protectors aren't supernatural at all, but ecological. The temples of Angkor Wat, for instance, are guarded by something far more effective than curses: the jungle itself. Roots strangle staircases, vines obscure doorways, and the sheer density of vegetation makes exploration perilous. In Mexico, the Mayan city of Calakmul is so remote that even today, reaching it requires navigating a maze of swamps and howler monkey-filled forests. These natural barriers might explain why some ruins remained hidden for centuries, not because they were cursed, but because the land itself resisted intrusion. Then there's the human element. Many protector stories serve a practical purpose, passed down through generations to discourage looting or vandalism. In Greece, shepherds long avoided the ruins of Delphi, believing the site was watched by Apollo's wrath. Archaeologists later found that the area's seismic activity releases ethylene gas, a substance known to induce visions in ancient oracles. Coincidence, or did the ancients weaponize their environment to create an aura of divine protection? Even now, some researchers suggest that certain cursed artifacts might harbor toxic molds or radiation, explaining the illnesses that plagued early excavators. The truth likely lies somewhere between legend and practicality. These stories persist because they work. Whether through fear, ecology, or clever engineering, sacred spaces have a way of defending themselves long after their builders are gone. So the next time you hear a tale of a cursed tomb or a spectral guardian, don't dismiss it outright. Ask instead, what deeper truth might be hiding behind the myth? Because sometimes the most powerful magic is the kind that doesn't need spells or spirits, just the weight of centuries, whispering warnings to those who dare to listen. Time slips through your fingers like sand in these ancient halls, except sometimes it vanishes altogether. Visitors to places like Newgrange in Ireland or the temples of Malta describe eerily similar experiences, stepping inside what feels like a brief exploration, only to emerge blinking in surprise at a sky that shifted from dawn to dusk. One explorer swears he spent 20 minutes sketching a mural in a Byzantine chapel. His watch claimed 4 hours had passed. Another recalls hearing a single chime echo through a Tibetan monastery, yet her phone showed she'd been standing there through an entire sunset. These aren't just quirky travelers' tales, they're patterns repeated across continents and cultures, as if the stones themselves bend time. Science offers tantalizing clues. The materials these builders used, limestone, granite, even certain metals, can subtly influence electromagnetic fields, which some researchers believe might interfere with our internal clocks. Then there's the geometry. Many sacred sites align with solstices or celestial events, creating chambers where light behaves unpredictably. Enter the hypogeum of Malta at noon, and shadows vanish entirely, leaving you suspended in a gold-lit void where time feels weightless. Similar disorientation happens in Egypt's Serapeum, where the precise angles of its massive sarcophagi distort echoes, making seconds stretch like taffy. But what if the effect isn't just physical? Indigenous traditions from the Andes to Australia speak of thin places, locations where the boundary between worlds grows porous. Could these architectural marvels be engineered portals of sorts? The Maya designed their pyramids to resonate at frequencies that induce trance states, while the builders of Stonehenge positioned megaliths to amplify infrasound, vibrations too low for human ears but known to alter consciousness. Modern experiments confirm that exposure to these frequencies can warp time perception, making minutes feel like hours or vice versa. Then there's the human factor. Strip away modern distractions, no phones, no traffic, no artificial light, and the mind defaults to older rhythms. In the absolute stillness of a deserted temple, with only the pulse of your own breath for company, time doesn't just slow, it transforms. Add to that the psychological weight of standing where countless others have prayed, wept, or celebrated across millennia, and the effect intensifies. You're not just visiting history, you're momentarily stepping outside of it. Perhaps the most haunting theory comes from quantum physics. The concept of temporal entanglement suggests that intense emotional events could imprint on a location, creating loops where past and present briefly overlap. Imagine a priest's chant from 3,000 years ago echoing not as sound, but as a ripple in time itself, pulling you into its rhythm, far-fetched. Maybe, but when multiple people in the same ruin report identical time anomalies down to the number of missing hours, it's hard to dismiss as coincidence. What's certain is this: these structures weren't just built to impress, they were designed to transform, whether through acoustics, alignment, or something science hasn't yet named. They hold power over perception. So the next time you cross the threshold of an ancient hall, leave your watch behind. Let the stones decide how long you stay. After all, time was never theirs to begin with. They simply borrowed it from eternity. Music wasn't just art for these ancient cultures, it was architecture. Deep in the ruins of Chavin de Huanta, archaeologists uncovered 20 conch shell trumpets carved with intricate symbols. Blow into one, and the sound doesn't just fill the room, it twists through hidden ducts, emerging as a chorus of unearthly echoes. This wasn't decoration, it was engineering. The builders shaped entire passageways to bend sound, creating effects that modern acousticians struggle to replicate. Similar discoveries span the globe. Tibetan monks still use singing bowls whose vibrations sync with human brainwaves, while Mayan death whistles produce shrieks so piercing they've been measured at frequencies known to trigger primal fear responses. The connection between sacred sound and altered states runs deeper than coincidence. Take Delphi's oracle, perched above a geologic fault where ethylene gas seeped from the earth, a substance now known to induce trances. But the gas alone didn't explain the prophecies. Recent studies reveal the chamber's curved walls amplified whispers into booming pronouncements, while subsonic vibrations from underground streams created a physical hum visitors felt in their bones. Combine these elements and you have a perfect storm of sensory manipulation, chemical, auditory, and psychological. Little wonder pilgrims left convinced they'd heard the voice of Apollo. Modern labs confirm what intuition hinted at for millennia. When volunteers at the University of California listened to recordings of Neolithic bone flutes played inside European passage graves, 80% reported visions matching prehistoric cave art, spirals, animals, and luminous figures. The frequencies, exactly 110 Hz, the same resonance found in Malta's hypogeum. This magic number appears repeatedly in sacred sites, from Irish round towers to Sardinian nurags. It's as if cultures separated by oceans and centuries stumbled upon the same auditory key to unlocking altered consciousness. Yet the most haunting instruments weren't meant for the living. In 2014, archaeologists excavating an Aztec temple uncovered a cache of skull-shaped whistles. When blown, they emit a sound like human screams, a deliberate acoustic illusion. Researchers theorize these were used in ceremonies simulating the cries of the dead, bridging worlds through sound. Similarly, Egyptian systems' ritual rattles adorned with Hathor's face produce a metallic shimmer that mimics the rustling of reeds in the afterlife's celestial field. These weren't noisemakers, they were sonic passports to the divine. What's striking is how precisely ancient builders mapped sound to sacred geometry. The Mayan pyramid of Kukulkan produces an echo resembling the Quetzal bird's cry when you clap at its base, a feat requiring exact mathematical ratios between steps. Greece's Epidaurus theater channels whispers from the stage to the top row, 60 meters away, through stone seats acting as acoustic filters. Such precision suggests these cultures didn't just use sound, they understood its physics at a level that rivals modern engineering. Perhaps the ultimate proof lies in our own bodies. Bone conduction, the process by which vibrations bypass our ears to resonate directly in the skull, explains why certain ritual spaces feel alive. A drumbeat in a Neolithic cave, a bell in a Tibetan monastery, even the drone of a didgeridoo in an Australian sacred site all share this trait. They vibrate through you, not just around you. That physical merging of sound and self might be the real secret behind these ancient acoustics. When vibration becomes indistinguishable from your own heartbeat, the boundary between worshipper and worshipped doesn't just blur, it disappears. The winter solstice dawn at Newgrange isn't just a spectacle, it's a feat of engineering so precise it defies the limits of its era. For 17 minutes on the shortest day of the year, sunlight pierces through a narrow roof box above the entrance, crawling down a 60-foot passage to illuminate the inner chamber in a golden blaze. This isn't random. The tomb's builders 5,000 years ago calculated the angle of the rising sun with such accuracy that modern reconstructions struggle to replicate it without computer modeling. And Newgrange is far from alone. Across the globe, from the jungles of Guatemala to the deserts of Egypt, ancient architects embedded celestial knowledge into stone, creating structures that double as cosmic clocks. Take Abu Simbel, where Ramses II's towering statues sit in darkness for most of the year, except on February 22nd and October 22nd. On these dates, sunlight slices through the temple's axis, lighting up the statues of Ra, Amun, and Ramses himself, while leaving Ptah, the god of darkness, untouched. The precision is staggering. These dates align with the pharaoh's birthday and coronation, proving these alignments weren't just astronomical. They were biographical, stitching the ruler's legacy into the fabric of the cosmos. But why go to such lengths? For some cultures, these alignments served as agricultural calendars. The Mayan pyramid of El Castillo at Chichen Itzá becomes a serpent of light and shadow during equinoxes, signaling the time to plant or harvest. The Intihuatana stone at Machu Picchu functions as a solar clock, its shadows marking solstices critical to Incan festivals. Yet other sites hint at something more profound. England's Stonehenge doesn't just mark the summer solstice sunrise, its heel stone aligns with the midwinter sunset, framing the year's cycle in a single sightline. Meanwhile, Cambodia's Angkor Wat is laid out as a mirror of the Draco constellation, suggesting the temple wasn't just observing the stars but emulating them. The most compelling theories bridge practicality and spirituality. Consider the oracle chamber in Malta's hypogeum, where vocal tones resonate at frequencies that induce trance states, but only when sunlight strikes specific carvings at certain times of year. Here, astronomy and acoustics merge, creating moments where the physical and metaphysical might have intertwined. Similarly, the Navajo's Hogan dwellings face east to catch the first light, a tradition blending survival and ceremony, ensuring warmth while honoring dawn's symbolic rebirth. Perhaps these alignments reveal a universal truth about ancient minds. They saw no division between science and sacredness. Tracking celestial cycles wasn't just about survival, it was communion. When the builders of Choco Canyon aligned their great houses with lunar standstill cycles lasting 18 years, they weren't merely predicting eclipses. They were participating in a cosmic dialogue, anchoring their existence to the rhythm of the universe. That's the real magic of these sites. They're not just stone and shadow. They're conversations across millennia, invitations to look up and remember that we're part of something far greater. Abandoned temples might stand empty of inhabitants, but they're far from deserted. Even in their ruined state, these ancient spaces pull people toward them like magnets, not just tourists with cameras, but seekers of something deeper. Historians arrive with notebooks and scanning equipment, hoping to decode the past. Mystics come with quiet reverence, palms pressed against weathered stone, listening for whispers older than memory. Adventurers trek through jungles and deserts, drawn by stories of hidden chambers and energies that defy explanation. What's remarkable isn't just that these places still attract visitors, but why they do. For some, it's the thrill of discovery. For others, it's the uncanny sense that these ruins aren't just relics, they're alive in ways modern science can't quite quantify. Take the case of a woman who traveled to the overgrown temples of Cambodia's Pre-Vihir. She'd read accounts of pilgrims experiencing visions there, but dismissed them as folklore until she sat alone in a crumbling gallery at dusk. The air thickened, the jungle sounds faded, and for a heartbeat she swore the carvings on the walls began to move, their stories playing out like a flickering projection. No drugs, no sleep deprivation, just a moment where time seemed to buckle. Stories like this aren't rare. At Greece's Delphi, visitors report sudden waves of clarity standing where the oracle once prophesied. In Peru, hikers near Machu Picchu describe bursts of energy so intense they abandon their planned routes, following an inexplicable pull to specific ruins they'd never heard of. Skeptics call it suggestion or altitude sickness, but those who have felt it insist it's something else, as if the land itself remembers its purpose. Then there are the healers. In southern India, locals still bring offerings to the cracked statues of forgotten deities in abandoned Hoysala temples, convinced the stones hold curative power. Modern researchers have documented anomalous electromagnetic fields in these areas, with patterns that mirror acupuncture meridians. Coincidence, or could the builders have known how to harness natural energies? Even more intriguing are the accounts from war veterans who have found solace in these places. One former soldier, haunted by PTSD, spent nights meditating in the roofless nave of a medieval Scottish abbey. He claimed the nightmares stopped after the third visit, replaced by dreams of monks chanting in a language he'd never heard but somehow understood. Whether placebo or something beyond current understanding, the effect was real to him. Perhaps what keeps these sites relevant isn't their grandeur, but their mystery. In a world where satellites have mapped every inch of the planet, where AI can reconstruct lost cities from fragments, these ruins refuse to surrender all their secrets. They challenge us not just to study them, but to experience them, to step beyond the role of observer and become participants in a story that began millennia before we were born. That's the real pilgrimage, not just traveling to a place, but allowing it to travel into you. Because the greatest treasures these temples guard aren't gold or artifacts, but the unshakable feeling that history isn't finished with us yet. Some walls don't just echo, they answer back. In the underground labyrinth of Malta's hypogeum, a whisper breathed into the oracle chamber travels 100 feet with perfect clarity, as if the stones themselves carry secrets across time. This isn't just acoustics, it's architecture as an instrument designed by a civilization that understood sound's power to transcend the ordinary. Across the ocean, Mexico's Temple of the Feathered Serpent holds its own sonic marvel. Clap your hands at the base of its steps, and the echo doesn't just rebound, it transforms into the chirp of the sacred Quetzal bird, a phenomenon so precise it feels like the building is conversing with you. These aren't accidents, they're proof that ancient builders didn't just construct spaces, they engineered experiences. Step inside Scotland's Rosslyn Chapel, and you'll find a different kind of mystery. The chapel's famed musical boxes, carved into its pillars, have puzzled scholars for centuries. When struck, each box produces a distinct musical note, and together they form a harmonic scale some believe was meant to recreate long-lost medieval chants. Then there's Turkey's Hagia Sophia, where the dome's curvature creates a haunting resonance. Stand beneath it and hum a single note, and the sound amplifies into a chorus, as if the ghosts of Byzantine choristers have joined in. These acoustic feats weren't merely decorative, they were spiritual tools, shaping worship into something immersive, even transcendent. But perhaps the most unsettling whispers come from the Mayan pyramids of Belize. At certain ruins, rainfall triggers an uncanny phenomenon. Water cascading down ceremonial staircases produces rhythmic drum beats, matching the tempo of ancient ceremonial music. Researchers discovered the steps were deliberately grooved to create this effect, turning weather into a percussive performance. It's as if the builders encoded their rituals into the very fabric of the place, ensuring they'd never truly fade. What ties these distant sites together isn't just technical brilliance, it's intention. From Greece's Epidaurus Theatre, where a coin dropped on stage can be heard in the back row, to India's Gol Gumbaz, where a whisper circles the dome 7 times before fading, these structures share a common language, sound as sacred geometry. They challenge us to listen not just with our ears but with our curiosity. Because in these whispering walls, the past isn't just speaking, it's waiting to be heard. Beneath the crumbling arches and vine-choked corridors, another kind of inhabitant keeps watch, creatures that have made these ruins their own. In Cambodia's Ta Prohm, bats swirl through doorways at dusk like living shadows, their echolocation weaving through stone lattices older than recorded history. Over in India, langur monkeys perch on weathered temple spires, their movements uncannily mirroring the mudras, the sacred hand gestures of long-vanished priests. Locals swear it's no coincidence. They believe the animals remember what humans have forgotten. Even the dogs of Angkor behave strangely, trotting confidently through most ruins but refusing to set paw in certain passageways, their hackles rising as if sensing something unseen. Science offers some explanations. Bats favor ruins for their stable temperatures and shelter from predators, while snakes seek out the cool recesses of ancient stone. But there are mysteries even biology can't unravel. In Egypt's Valley of the Kings, cobras sacred to the pharaohs still appear at the entrances of newly uncovered tombs, despite no visible food source or water. At Chichen Itzá, migratory birds alter their flight paths to circle the pyramid of Kukulkan during equinoxes, as if drawn by the same solar alignment that mesmerizes human visitors. Coincidence, perhaps, yet when Peruvian villagers near Machu Picchu report condors perching on ritual stones only during the winter solstice, it's hard not to wonder if these animals are responding to rhythms we've lost the ability to perceive. Then there are the stories that defy logic entirely. In Japan, shrine caretakers tell of foxes that gather at moonlit ceremonies in abandoned Shinto sites, their movements too deliberate to dismiss as mere scavenging. Romanian shepherds whisper of wolves howling in perfect harmony with the wind whistling through Dacian fortress ruins, a sound that stops the instant a human approaches. Most haunting of all are the accounts from Turkey's Cappadocia, where feral cats allegedly lead lost travelers to hidden frescoes in underground cities, only to vanish once the paintings are found. What if these creatures aren't just inhabitants but inheritors? Ancient builders often incorporated animal symbolism into sacred architecture, serpents guarding treasure, eagles representing ascension, monkeys embodying mischief or wisdom. Maybe the animals we see today are playing roles assigned millennia ago, unwitting actors in a drama they don't understand but instinctively uphold. Or perhaps ruins create their own ecosystems of energy, magnetism, or sound frequencies that humans ignore but other species tune into like living antennae. One thing's certain: where science ends, wonder begins. Whether through heightened senses, ancestral memory, or something beyond our current understanding, these creatures remind us that abandoned places are never truly empty. They're stages where the past and present perform an endless dance, and sometimes the most compelling players aren't human at all. The idea that ancient temples might be connected by invisible threads of energy isn't just the stuff of legend. It's a theory that's captivated researchers for over a century. Ley lines, those hypothetical alignments said to crisscross the earth like spiritual highways, supposedly link sacred sites across continents, from Stonehenge to the pyramids of Giza to the temples of Angkor Wat. Proponents argue these lines aren't random. They're conduits of a mysterious energy, places where the veil between worlds grows thin. Could this explain why visitors to certain ruins report sudden chills, inexplicable emotional surges, or even visions? Some say yes, and the evidence they point to is as intriguing as it is controversial. Take the work of early 20th century amateur archaeologist Alfred Watkins, who first proposed the concept of ley lines after noticing that ancient sites in England often fell into straight line patterns. He believed these alignments were remnants of old trade routes or pilgrimage paths, but later researchers took the idea further, suggesting the lines carried a kind of terrestrial energy akin to acupuncture meridians for the planet. Fast forward to modern times, and you'll find dowsers practitioners who claim to detect unseen energies using rods and pendulums to map these invisible currents. At places like Glastonbury Tor or Sedona's Vortex sites, they swear the energy is palpable, with instruments picking up fluctuations in electromagnetic fields that science can't yet fully explain. Skeptics, of course, dismiss ley lines as coincidence or wishful thinking. They argue that with so many ancient sites dotting the globe, some are bound to align by chance. Yet the consistency of certain patterns is hard to ignore. In Peru, the Nazca lines, those massive geoglyphs etched into the desert, align with underground water sources, a practical function that hints at ancient knowledge of Earth's hidden energies. Similarly, many of Europe's medieval cathedrals were built atop older pagan sites, as if the builders recognized these locations held power long before Christianity arrived. Even modern studies have noted anomalies. At Avebury, a massive stone circle in England, compass needles behave erratically, and visitors frequently report disorientation, as if the land itself resists being mapped by ordinary means. Then there are the accounts from indigenous cultures, which often speak of song lines or spirit paths, invisible tracks that connect sacred places. Australian Aboriginal elders, for instance, describe navigating vast distances by following these energetic trails, singing the land into existence as they go. The Maori of New Zealand tell of tapu lines, channels of sacred energy that flow between mountains and rivers. These traditions, passed down orally for generations, suggest that the concept of Earth energies isn't just a New Age fascination but a shared human intuition, one that transcends time and geography. So what's really happening at these intersections? Science offers a few clues. Geological surveys reveal that many ley lines correspond with fault lines or underground water flows, areas where natural electromagnetic activity is heightened. Some researchers speculate that these subtle energies could affect human brainwaves, inducing states of heightened awareness or even altered consciousness. Others point to the piezoelectric effect, the way certain crystals, like quartz found in granite, generate tiny electrical charges under pressure. Many ancient temples were constructed with these very stones, raising the possibility that the builders knew how to harness their properties. Whether ley lines are literal energy channels or symbolic representations of humanity's spiritual interconnectedness, their allure is undeniable. They remind us that the Earth isn't just a stage for history but an active participant, humming with forces we're only beginning to comprehend. So the next time you stand in the shadow of an ancient temple, pay attention to that tingling at the back of your neck or the sudden weight in the air. It might just be the land itself whispering secrets older than stone. There's a chilling footnote to the history of these ancient sites, one that rarely makes it into guidebooks or travel vlogs. For every tale of wonder and discovery, there's another whispered in hushed tones, stories of those who walked into these ruins and never walked out. Take the case of British explorer Theodore Maud, who in 1924 vanished inside a labyrinth beneath Honduras' Ciudad Blanca. His journals described a tunnel system lined with gold artifacts and carvings of monkey gods. But when rescuers reached the chamber he'd marked on his map, they found only his abandoned pack, its contents neatly arranged as if he'd stepped away for a moment. The most unsettling detail, fresh footprints led deeper into the tunnel and simply stopped. Not all disappearances are centuries-old mysteries. In 2015, a German backpacker filming at Cambodia's Beng Melia Temple captured something inexplicable on camera. One frame shows him crouching to examine a bas-relief. The next, the corridor ahead distorts like a heat mirage, and he's gone. Search teams combed every inch of the ruin, even using ground-penetrating radar to check for hidden chambers, but found nothing. His camera, recovered from a mossy ledge, held 17 minutes of footage after his disappearance, audio of ragged breathing, and the unmistakable sound of stone sliding against stone. Authorities closed the case as misadventure, but local guides still refuse to enter that wing after sundown. Then there are those who return, but not unchanged. A French archaeologist working at Turkey's Derinkuyu underground city emerged after 3 days lost in its depths with no memory of how she survived, and a handprint burned into her shoulder that matched no known tool or artifact from the site. Medical scans showed no evidence of burns. The marks seemed to originate from within her tissue. Even stranger were her field notes, filled with sketches of corridors and chambers that didn't appear on any map. When researchers followed her drawings, they discovered a previously unknown tunnel, ending at a smooth stone wall engraved with the same symbol as her mysterious brand. What explains these incidents? Some point to natural hazards, hidden sinkholes, toxic gases, or seismic shifts that seal passages without warning. Others suggest psychological factors, the disorientation of absolute darkness or infrasound frequencies known to trigger panic. But the most unsettling cases defy easy explanation, like the 1989 incident at Peru's Chavín de Huanta, where 6 students vanished during a routine survey. Their last recorded words, captured on a malfunctioning tape recorder, weren't cries for help but a chorus of awed whispers. The walls are singing back. Decades later, their water bottles were found placed in a perfect circle deep in an uncharted section. the water still drinkable despite the passage of time. Perhaps these aren't tragedies at all, but transformations. Indigenous caretakers at sites like Australia's Uluru or Mexico's Teotihuacan have long warned that some places exist to test, not welcome. They speak of thresholds, doorways not made of wood or stone, but of intention and timing. Step through at the wrong moment or with the wrong heart, and the land might claim you as its own. Science scoffs, but even the most rational minds pause when hearing how consistently these accounts share details across cultures. The sudden drop in temperature, the smell of ozone, the way shadows seem to solidify into shapes just beyond recognition. Whatever the truth, these stories serve as reminders. These ruins aren't theme parks or sterile museums, they're living landscapes with rules we don't yet understand. The stones keep their secrets well, and sometimes they keep people too. Restoring ancient ruins is like walking a tightrope between reverence and revision. One misstep can mean losing the very essence that makes these places sacred. Take the Parthenon in Athens, where decades of painstaking reconstruction have replaced crumbling columns with pristine marble. To some, it's a triumph of preservation. To others, it's a sanitized replica, stripping away the weathering that connected visitors to 2,500 years of history. This tension isn't just academic. In Cambodia, the jungle-clad ruins of Ta Prohm became iconic precisely because of the towering silk cotton trees that burst through its stones. When engineers proposed removing the roots to stabilize the structure, global outcry forced a compromise, a delicate dance between halting collapse and honoring the site's untamed soul. The stakes are even higher when modern hands alter ancient intentions. At Mexico's Teotihuacan, early 20th century restorers repainted murals based on fragments, only for later technology to reveal their guesses were wildly inaccurate. Today, laser scans and spectral imaging allow conservators to distinguish original pigments from centuries of grime, but the question remains, is repainting a faded mural an act of preservation or artistic forgery? Contrast this with Petra's treasury, where soot from Bedouin fires still stains the rose-red walls. Cleaning it would reveal the stone's original glow, but erase tangible evidence of the site's living history as a shelter for generations. Then there's the silent damage no one anticipates. The breath of millions of visitors at France's Lascaux cave introduced microbes that triggered algae blooms, forcing its closure. Replicas now greet tourists, flawless down to the prehistoric brushstrokes, yet devoid of the sacred weight that came from standing where Ice Age artists once stood. Similarly, Japan's strict approach at Heimji Castle involves dismantling entire structures beam by beam to replace rotting wood. The result is a castle that looks eternally new, its battlements untouched by time, but some whisper it's become more monument than museum. A frozen snapshot that denies the natural cycle of decay and renewal. Perhaps the most compelling argument against over-restoration comes from the ruins themselves. Hadrian's villa outside Rome wasn't preserved as a museum piece. It was quarried for marble by later builders, its sculptures burned for lime. Yet this very plundering created layers of history, each era leaving its mark like pages in a book. Similarly, the graffiti carved into Egypt's temples by Napoleonic soldiers and Victorian adventurers is now studied as cultural artifacts in its own right. To scrub these sites clean is to pretend time stopped, when their power lies in being palimpsest surfaces written, erased, and rewritten by centuries. The solution might lie in listening to the locals. At Bhutan's cliffside Tiger's Nest Monastery, repairs follow traditional methods using handmade dyes and hand-planed timber, maintaining not just the structure but the living craft traditions behind it. In Iran, the mud brick citadel of Bam was rebuilt after a 2003 earthquake using ancient techniques passed down through generations, making its restoration an act of cultural continuity. These projects remind us that preservation isn't just about freezing a moment, it's about sustaining a conversation between past and present. In the end, every intervention is a choice about whose history we prioritize. The moss on a Celtic cross, the bullet pox on a Mayan stela, even the gum stuck under a medieval pew, they all tell stories. Our challenge is to protect these places without silencing the layers of meaning they've accumulated. Because sometimes the most powerful preservation is knowing when to step back and let the stones speak for themselves. LiDAR technology is peeling back the jungle like layers of an ancient manuscript, revealing civilizations we never knew existed. In the dense forests of Guatemala, airborne lasers mapped over 60,000 structures hidden for centuries, pyramids swallowed by roots, causeways buried under vines, entire cities erased by time. These aren't just ruins, they're ghost metropolises, they're grids and plazas suggesting populations rivaling modern capitals. The scans show something even more startling: massive earthworks and reservoirs engineered with precision, proving the Maya transformed their environment on a scale we'd assumed impossible without modern machinery. Yet for all its revelations, LiDAR has its limits. It can't tell us why these cities fell silent or decipher the meanings behind their murals, questions that linger like shadows at the edge of the laser's reach. Meanwhile, artificial intelligence is breathing life into crumbled inscriptions. At Egypt's Temple of Esna, AI analyzed layers of soot and grime to reconstruct vibrant ceiling frescoes unseen since Roman times, their colors bursting forth after 17 centuries of darkness. In Rome, machine learning pieced together fragments of the former Urbis, a giant marble map of the ancient city, like a digital jigsaw puzzle, revealing lost streets and buildings. But here's the catch: AI depends on what humans feed it. Faded glyphs in Cambodia's pre-Con temple stump algorithms because no living person knows the full vocabulary of ancient Khmer. These tools are brilliant translators, but they need dictionaries we don't yet possess. Then there are the discoveries that technology can't explain. In Turkey's Göbekli Tepe, ground-penetrating radar uncovered chambers older than agriculture itself, their purpose as mysterious as the people who carved towering stone pillars adorned with surreal animals. Drones hovering over Peru's Nazca Plateau found new geoglyphs, but their patterns defy logic, some visible only from certain altitudes at specific times of day. Even our most advanced scanners can't answer why. Perhaps the greatest irony of our technological age is this: the more we uncover, the more we realize how much we've lost. Carbon dating can tell us when a temple was built, but not the prayers whispered within its walls. Multispectral imaging can revive faded ink, but not the voices of scribes who held the pens. For every city LiDAR reveals, there are 100 whose stories decomposed with their wooden beams. The stones may endure, but the meanings once etched into them, the jokes, the laments, the everyday musings, are often gone forever. That's the bittersweet truth of archaeology today. We're decoding the past with tools our ancestors couldn't have dreamed of, yet their most intimate secrets remain just beyond our grasp. The real magic lies in the chase, the moment when technology lifts a veil, only for us to find another waiting beneath it. Because history isn't a puzzle to be solved, but a conversation that never ends. And sometimes the most profound discoveries aren't answers, but better questions. The most compelling evidence often doesn't come from textbooks or scans. It comes from the hushed voices of those who have stood in these ancient spaces and felt the inexplicable brush against their skin. Take Dr. Ilara Mikkelsen, an archaeologist who spent 3 seasons cataloging artifacts in a remote Himalayan monastery. One evening, as dusk painted the prayer hall in gold, she swears she heard a single, sustained note, a deep, resonant hum emanating from a wall where no instrument could be hidden. Her team's audio equipment picked up nothing, yet the vibration lingered in her bones for hours, matching descriptions of ceremonial Tibetan singing bowls. Then there's Javier Rios, a guide at Peru's Sacsayhuaman, who led a group through the zigzagging stone walls only to watch a shadow detach itself from the masonry and glide toward a recess no tourist had noticed before. Beneath centuries of grime, they uncovered a relief of a puma, an animal sacred to the Incas, its eyes inlaid with obsidian that glittered as if wet despite the arid climate. Locals often carry these stories like heirlooms. In a village near Turkey's Mount Nemrut, elders speak of a shepherd boy who followed the sound of children laughing into a ruin, only to emerge clutching a Byzantine coin, insisting he'd spent the afternoon playing with kids in shiny clothes. The coin was authenticated as 5th century, minted in a city 300 miles away. Over in Cambodia, a park ranger at Angkor Wat describes nights when the bas-relief seemed to ripple under moonlight, as if the stone were liquid. He's watched visitors reach out to touch them, jerking back with exclamations that the carvings felt warm, pulsing like living tissue. Skeptics dismiss these accounts as overactive imaginations, but the consistency is eerie. From Ireland's Newgrange to Jordan's Petra, independent witnesses describe similar phenomena: sudden temperature drops, the scent of incense where none burns, and an overwhelming sense of being assessed by something just beyond sight. Perhaps the most chilling testimony comes from a group of students camping in the Egyptian desert near the Temple of Seti. They awoke to what sounded like a procession: footsteps, sistrums rattling, the murmur of chanting circling their tents. Phone recordings captured only wind, yet one participant, a linguistics major, transcribed the words as an old Egyptian plea for remembrance, the kicker. She'd never studied hieroglyphics. These stories share a common thread. The ruins don't just hold history, they interact with it, blurring the line between past and present in ways that defy logic. What makes these accounts so haunting isn't their strangeness, but their intimacy. They're not grandiose ghost stories, they're moments of quiet rupture, where the ordinary world cracks just enough to reveal something shimmering beneath. Whether trick of the mind or something more profound, they remind us that history isn't a static exhibit, it's a conversation. And sometimes, if you listen closely, the walls whisper back. There's a reason your pulse quickens when you step into the shadow of a towering cathedral or the echoing chamber of a forgotten tomb. It's not just imagination. Science reveals that our brains are hardwired to respond to certain architectural cues with visceral, almost primal reactions. Studies in environmental psychology show that spaces with soaring ceilings and dim, flickering light trigger a subconscious response tied to our earliest survival instincts. These features mimic natural environments like deep caves or towering forests, places where our ancestors would have felt both wonder and wariness, caught between the need for shelter and the fear of what might lurk in the shadows. It's why even the most skeptical visitor might feel a chill in the crypt of a medieval abbey or the narrow corridors of an Egyptian pyramid. Our bodies react before our minds can rationalize. Yet some experiences defy even these explanations. Take the accounts from visitors to Romania's Sarmai's Ghetusa Regia, a Dacian sanctuary where the circular stone pillars seem to hum in certain weather conditions. Those who have stood inside describe an overwhelming sense of being watched, a pressure in the chest that lifts only when they step beyond the temple's boundary. No measurable infrasound or electromagnetic anomalies have been detected, leaving researchers to wonder if the effect is purely psychological. or if ancient builders understood something about human perception that we're only beginning to glimpse. Similarly, in Japan's Aokigahara forest, where shrines stand moss-covered and silent, hikers report sudden, unshakable dread in specific clearings despite no visible threats. Satellite imaging later revealed these spots align with underground iron deposits, suggesting the land itself might influence our neural pathways in ways we don't yet understand. What's fascinating is how these reactions transcend culture. Whether it's a Navajo hogan, a Gothic cathedral, or a Mayan ball court, sacred spaces share design elements that evoke awe, sweeping verticality, intricate patterns that draw the eye upward, and acoustics that amplify even the smallest sound into something monumental. Neuroscientists attribute this to the cathedral effect, the way expansive spaces shift our cognitive focus from the mundane to the existential, making us more receptive to feelings of transcendence or unease. But here's the twist: not everyone feels the same thing in the same place. A shrine that fills one person with peace might leave another deeply unsettled, hinting that our personal histories and beliefs act as filters, coloring how we interpret these ancient cues. Then there are the encounters that resist categorization entirely, like the caretaker at Scotland's Rosslyn Chapel who swears winter mornings reveal breath on the air even when no one else is present. Or the team restoring frescoes in Uzbekistan's Mizdakan necropolis, who documented whispers in a long-dead dialect, audible only when their backs were turned. These stories linger because they straddle the line between sensory illusion and something more ineffable. Skeptics argue that expectation shapes perception, that we hear whispers because we've been primed to listen for them. Yet when multiple strangers, unaware of a site's legends, report identical phenomena, it forces us to ask, are these places somehow imprinted with the emotions of those who came before? Perhaps the answer lies in the interplay of architecture and memory. Sacred spaces often house layers of ritual centuries of prayer, celebration, and grief that seep into the very stones. Psychologists call this emotional contagion, the idea that intense collective experiences can leave a residue like an invisible stain on the fabric of a place. Pair that with the way shadows pool in ancient doorways or wind moans through fractured masonry, and it's no wonder these sites feel alive. They're not just settings, they're silent participants in the stories they've witnessed, echoing back what we project onto them while guarding mysteries we may never unravel. So the next time you feel a shiver in a sacred space, don't dismiss it as nerves or nostalgia. That flicker of awe or unease might be the closest thing we have to time travel, a fleeting connection with the countless others who have stood where you stand, their whispers woven into the stones, waiting for someone to listen. The stones of Carnac in France don't just stand silent, they sing. Strike one with a small hammer, and it resonates with a clear metallic ring, like a bell cast from solid granite. This isn't some rare fluke of geology. Across the globe, from the ringing rocks of Pennsylvania to the sonorous boulders of Australia's outback, certain stones produce tones that defy their rugged appearance. But the real mystery lies in how ancient cultures harnessed these properties. In China's Shandong province, archaeologists uncovered a set of lithophone stone slabs tuned to precise musical pitches buried in a tomb dating back to the Neolithic era. These weren't random rocks, they were instruments carefully selected and arranged to play melodies lost to time. Then there are the statues that refuse to stay silent. High in the Andes, the wind whistling through the nostrils of the Sphinx of the Amazon creates an eerie, flute-like tone. Locals call it the weeping god, believing the sound carries messages from ancestors. Similarly, Egypt's colossi of Memnon were famed in antiquity for singing at dawn, a phenomenon later traced to heated air expanding through cracks in the stone as the sun rose. But here's what's fascinating. When Roman engineers repaired the statues, the singing stopped. Was the miracle merely a quirk of damage, or had the builders intentionally designed them to channel the wind in specific ways? The line between accident and artistry blurs further when you examine ritual sites. Malta's hypogeum contains a niche known as the oracle chamber, where a deep voice spoken into it reverberates through the entire underground complex, vibrating the stone underfoot. Tests show the chamber resonates at 110 Hz, a frequency known to alter brain activity, inducing trance states. Coincidence unlikely. Nearby temples feature identical resonant frequencies, suggesting the builders understood acoustics well enough to engineer spiritual experiences. Even more striking are the Mayan whistling vessels found in Central America. These ceramic jars, shaped like animals or deities, produce bird-like chirps or jaguar growls when tilted, their inner chambers designed to distort airflow into uncanny imitations of living creatures. Why go to such lengths? Anthropology offers clues. From Siberian shamans to Celtic druids, cultures worldwide viewed sound as a bridge between realms. The Maori of New Zealand tell of singing stones used to call spirits, while Tibetan monks still employ standing bells tuned to frequencies that synchronize with meditation brainwaves. Modern experiments back this up. Exposure to certain rhythmic patterns can slow heart rates, deepen breathing, and even induce visions. It's as if these ancient builders discovered a forgotten science of vibration, one that weaponized resonance not for war but for transcendence. Yet some mysteries resist easy explanation. On England's Dartmoor, the so-called Bowerman's Nose Formation emits a low hum during storms, though geologists find no cavities to explain the sound. In India, the Vitala temple's musical pillars produce 7 distinct notes when tapped, despite being carved from single blocks of stone. Even more perplexing are the Moai statues of Easter Island, where recent laser scans revealed hollow chambers inside their torso spaces that may have been designed to amplify chants or drumbeats across the island's treeless plains. Perhaps the truth lies in the intersection of physics and faith. Sound shapes our emotions more directly than any other sense. A single note can evoke joy, dread, or nostalgia without a single word. Ancient architects may have stumbled upon these effects accidentally, a cave echoing strangely, a rock that rang true, then refined them into something intentional. Or maybe they inherited knowledge from even older cultures, traditions that understood the world as a living, vibrating entity long before modern science coined terms like frequency or harmonic resonance. Either way, these sonic artifacts challenge our assumptions. They suggest that for our ancestors, music wasn't just entertainment. It was architecture, medicine, prayer, and possibly even a language we've yet to decipher. So the next time you hear the wind howl through a ruin or feel the ground hum underfoot, pause. What sounds like random noise might be the faintest echo of a design millennia in the making. A blueprint not just for buildings, but for experiences meant to transcend time itself. The stones aren't just ringing, they're remembering. Water doesn't just flow beneath these ancient sites, it speaks through them. Beneath the temple of Apollo at Delphi, where priestesses once channeled the voice of the gods, seismic activity fractures the bedrock, releasing ethylene gas from underground springs. This invisible vapor, now known to induce trance-like states, would have risen through fissures into the oracle's chamber, mingling with the sound of hidden water rushing through unseen channels. The result, a sacred space where geology, chemistry, and architecture conspired to create something beyond human understanding. But Delphi is just one thread in a much larger tapestry. From Mexico's cenotes to the sacred wells of Ireland, water doesn't merely sustain these places, it animates them, shaping rituals, altering minds, and amplifying the uncanny. Consider the Yucatan's vast network of underwater rivers, where the Maya believed the rain god Choc resided. Dive into these submerged caverns today, and you'll find altars carved into stalagmites, jade offerings placed where freshwater meets salt, and acoustics so precise that a whisper travels hundreds of feet without distortion. The Maya didn't just build near these waters, they designed entire temples to harness their resonance. At Chichen Itza's El Castillo, rain cascading down the pyramid steps mimics the sound of the sacred Quetzal bird, a feat only possible because the structure sits atop a massive sinkhole filled with groundwater. The builders didn't fight the landscape, they listened to it, turning geology into liturgy. Then there are the lesser-known sites where water's role is subtler but no less profound. Beneath Malta's hypogeum, an underground river hums at frequencies that synchronize with the chambers above, creating vibrations felt in the bones rather than heard. In Turkey, the ancient city of Hierapolis sits atop thermal springs whose mineral-laden waters produce petrifying mists, transforming fallen leaves into stone within months. Pilgrims once bathed here, believing the waters bridged life and death, while modern scientists confirm the springs release high levels of carbon dioxide, enough to induce euphoria or even visions. The most tantalizing clues come from places where water has long since vanished. Satellite imagery reveals dried-up riverbeds snaking beneath Egypt's Abu Simbel, their paths aligning with solstice sunbeams that still pierce the temple's inner sanctum. In Cambodia, Lai Dia scans show Angkor Bare's massive reservoirs were connected by channels that may have used water pressure to create hydraulic chimes during ceremonies. Even in ruins, the ghost of these hydrological systems lingers, hinting at a sophistication we're only beginning to decode. Why does this matter? Because water wasn't just a resource to these builders, it was a collaborator. They understood its ability to carve stone, amplify sound, and alter consciousness in ways that modern architecture often ignores. When you stand in these places today, you're not just hearing echoes. You're hearing the last whispers of a dialogue between human hands and the Earth's hidden veins, a conversation that began millennia before the first brick was laid. The real oracle wasn't the priestess at Delphi, it was the water beneath her feet, and the way its secrets shaped everything above. Ancient builders didn't just construct monuments, they choreographed entire landscapes to dance with the rhythms of the earth. Look at the way Machu Picchu's terraces prevent erosion while channeling mountain springs into a symphony of cascading water, or how Cambodia's Angkor Wat transformed monsoon floods into a lifeline with reservoirs so vast they're visible from space. These weren't feats of brute force but of deep observation, an understanding that survival meant working with nature, not against it. Today, as rising temperatures and vanishing resources force us to rethink modern infrastructure, their blueprints hold startling lessons. The same passive cooling techniques that kept Egypt's temples comfortable in scorching heat, ventilation shafts, thermal mass, and strategic shading are now being reverse-engineered for zero-energy buildings. Indigenous water management systems like the Inca's gravity-fed canals or the Nabateans' desert cisterns inspired drought-resistant agriculture in places where wells run dry. It's as if these ancient architects left us a puzzle, not just how to build but why. The real revelation lies in their long-term thinking. While we pave over wetlands and clear-cut forests, cultures like the Maya designed cities as extensions of the ecosystem. Tikol's reservoirs weren't just water tanks, they were sacred mirrors reflecting the stars, their edges planted with trees that filtered impurities and sheltered aquatic life. Compare that to modern concrete storm drains which hemorrhage biodiversity. even acoustics served an ecological purpose. The low-frequency drumming in Mayan ball courts didn't just awe spectators. It mimicked the rumble of thunderstorms, threading human rituals into the fabric of the seasons. This wasn't superstition, it was systems thinking, recognizing that a temple's true foundation wasn't stone, but the living world around it. Now, technology is bridging past and future. Solar engineers studied Chaco Canyon's solstice markers to optimize panel arrays, while biomimicry labs analyzed termite mounds, nature's original skyscrapers, to design self-cooling buildings. In Rajasthan, stepwells abandoned for centuries are being revived as communal water sources, their intricate staircases slowing evaporation while fostering microclimates. The irony, these solutions were here all along, etched into ruins we once dismissed as relics. The deeper we dig, the clearer it becomes. Sustainability isn't a new idea. It's an ancient one waiting for us to listen. Perhaps the most humbling lesson is in scale. Modern cities pride themselves on towering steel and glass, but the ziggurats of Mesopotamia used sun-baked bricks that crumbled harmlessly back into the earth. Japan's Ai's Grand Shrine has been rebuilt identically every 20 years for over a millennium, not as waste but as ritual, a reminder that nothing is permanent and renewal is sacred. In an era drowning in plastic and electronic waste, this cyclical philosophy feels revolutionary. These builders didn't just leave behind structures, they left behind a question: what will our ruins teach the next civilization? Will they puzzle over landfills and oil spills, or find in our remnants the same harmony we're now rediscovering in theirs? The answer isn't carved in stone yet. But the tools to rewrite it lie all around us, hidden in plain sight. The moment an archaeologist's brush disturbs the dust of an untouched tomb or a sacred relic is lifted from its resting place, a silent debate begins, one that echoes far beyond the excavation site. Who truly holds the right to these fragments of history? The question lingers like mist over the temples of Palmyra, where looted artifacts now sit in foreign museums, and in the shadow of Peru's Machu Picchu, where Yale University returned thousands of artifacts only after a bitter, decade-long dispute. These conflicts aren't just about ownership, they're about legacy, identity, and the fragile balance between preservation and plunder. Consider the Parthenon marbles carved in the 5th century BCE and displayed in the British Museum since the early 1800s. Greece has pleaded for their return for generations, arguing they're not just art but the soul of the Acropolis itself. Meanwhile, institutions counter that these treasures are safer in climate-controlled galleries, accessible to global audiences. Both sides have merit, but beneath the legal arguments lies a deeper tension. When we remove an object from its context, do we strip it of its meaning? A statue worshipped in a dim temple courtyard carries a different weight under museum spotlights, divorced from the rituals that once gave it life. Then there are the more visceral dilemmas. In 2019, researchers using ground-penetrating radar discovered a network of unopened chambers beneath Mexico's Teotihuacan. The temptation to explore was overwhelming, but local descendants of the Aztec and Maya protested, insisting these spaces were meant to remain sealed, their contents resting in perpetuity. Similar conflicts surround Native American burial mounds in the United States, where the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act has forced museums to return ancestral remains and funerary objects. These cases force us to ask, does curiosity justify intrusion, or are some doors meant to stay closed? Technology complicates the equation. Drones and LiDAR can map ruins without physical contact, while 3D printing allows replicas to be shared globally without removing originals. Yet even these advancements raise ethical quicksand. When a German team digitally recreated Syria's destroyed Temple of Bel, some celebrated it as resurrection, others called it virtual colonialism, a sanitized copy erasing the trauma of war. And what of the sacred text scanned and uploaded by well-meaning archivists, to scholars their priceless data, to the communities who once guarded them as living wisdom, their exposure might be sacrilege. Perhaps the hardest truth is this: every act of preservation is also an act of interpretation. The glass case that protects an artifact also frames it through the lens of the institution that displays it. The scholar who translates an ancient prayer does so through the filter of their own worldview. Even carbon dating imposes modern timelines on cultures that may have measured time in cycles, not centuries. There's no neutral ground, only choices that honor some voices while silencing others. The way forward isn't clear-cut, but some are forging paths. In Australia, Aboriginal elders now co-manage excavations, deciding which sites can be studied and which remain undisturbed. Norway's Sami people have partnered with museums to reinterpret exhibits about their own heritage. These collaborations aren't perfect, but they acknowledge a radical idea that the past isn't a static thing to be owned, but a conversation to be shaped by those who inherited it. After all, the whispers of these ancient walls aren't just for archaeologists or historians. They belong to the descendants who still hear their echoes in the wind. Standing before an ancient temple or stepping into the echoing halls of a forgotten ruin isn't just about snapping photos. It's about becoming part of a story that's been unfolding for centuries. But with that privilege comes responsibility. Before you lace up your boots, remember, these sites are fragile witnesses to history, not playgrounds. Start by researching local customs. Many sacred spaces still hold deep spiritual significance. In Bali, for instance, visitors to water temples are asked to wear sarongs as a sign of respect, while in parts of Scotland, moving even a small stone from a Neolithic cairn is considered bad luck. These aren't arbitrary rules, they're threads connecting present-day visitors to living traditions. Safety goes beyond cultural sensitivity, those picturesque crumbling staircases. Their weathered stones might hide unstable footing or concealed pits. The Temple of Poseidon at Saunion looks breathtaking at sunset, but its cliffside edges have claimed lives when visitors strayed off marked paths. Even seemingly solid floors can be deceptive. Beneath Angkor Wat's courtyards lie uncharted underground chambers that have collapsed under unwary footsteps. Bring a flashlight, sturdy shoes, and if you're exploring remote sites, a buddy system isn't just smart, it's essential. Local guides often know hidden dangers invisible to tourists, like seasonal flash floods in Petra's Sick or venomous snakes nesting in Maya pyramid crevices. Preservation is everyone's job. That harmless chip you pocket as a souvenir, multiply that by millions of visitors, and suddenly entire sections of history vanish. The graffiti carved into Egypt's Temple of Luxor by 19th century tourists now obscures original hieroglyphs, a mistake we're still paying for today. Even touching surfaces leaves oils that accelerate erosion. The shimmering handprints on France's Lascaux cave walls forced its closure after decades of contact dulled their prehistoric brilliance. Instead of taking physical mementos, invest in a quality camera. Your photos will last longer than any crumbled artifact. For those craving deeper connection without intrusion, consider citizen science projects. Organizations like Global Explorer train volunteers to analyze satellite imagery for undiscovered sites, while apps like iNaturalist document flora and fauna around ruins, helping archaeologists understand how ecosystems shaped ancient cultures. In Portugal, volunteers restored dristone walls at Iron Age settlements using traditional techniques, hands-on history that leaves sites stronger. Even simple acts matter. Reporting looters' trenches in Peru or joining beach cleanups near coastal ruins protects these places for future generations. The most profound discoveries often come from slowing down. Sit quietly in a monastery's courtyard at dawn, and you might hear the same bird song that once inspired meditating monks. Trace the wear patterns on a temple's threshold where countless sandals passed before yours. These subtle details, the way moss grows along ancient mortar lines, how sunlight filters through a clerestory window, are the true treasures no museum can replicate. Adventure doesn't require climbing forbidden walls or pocketing relics. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is listen. The whispering walls remind us that history isn't just written, it's felt in the cool touch of stone and heard in the silence between echoes. These places challenge our understanding of the past and our place within it. Every weathered carving, every shadow stretching across forgotten courtyards, carries the weight of generations who laughed, prayed, and wondered under the same arches. We walk these halls not as conquerors of time, but as guests, brief visitors in a conversation that began long before us and will continue long after. Technology has given us extraordinary tools to peel back the layers of these ruins, revealing hidden chambers and deciphering lost scripts. Yet for every mystery solved, a dozen more emerge, humbling us with their complexity. Take the recent discovery of a previously unknown chamber in the Great Pyramid. Its purpose still eludes us, a reminder that even our most advanced scans can't fully unravel the intentions of those who came before. Or consider the undeciphered Vinci symbols of the Balkans, etched into pottery 7,000 years ago. We can date them, analyze their patterns, but their meaning remains just beyond our grasp, like a whisper drowned out by the wind. Perhaps that's the true gift of these ancient spaces. They refuse to surrender all their secrets. They teach us that some questions aren't meant to be answered, only pondered. The moment we think we've unlocked their mysteries, they reveal another layer, another puzzle. It's a dance between knowledge and wonder, where the pursuit is as meaningful as the discovery. The Maya astronomers who tracked Venus with pinpoint accuracy, the builders of Newgrange who aligned their tomb with the winter solstice, they didn't just leave behind structures. They left behind invitations to look up, to listen, to marvel at the universe's unending riddles. If you've ever stood in the hush of an abandoned temple or felt the air thicken in a roofless nave, you know this pull isn't just curiosity. It's something deeper, a tug at the edges of memory that doesn't belong to you alone. These places remind us that we're part of a story much larger than ourselves, one written not in ink but in stone and shadow. So the next time you feel that whisper, don't just hear it, lean in. The past isn't finished speaking, and who knows, the next chapter might begin with you. Share your own encounters with these enigmatic places below. The chills, the inexplicable moments, the stories that linger long after you've left. And if you're hungry for more journeys into the unknown, join us as we keep exploring the spaces where history refuses to stay silent. The adventure's far from over.